And as promised, we welcome in Dr. Tim McKnight after Christmas and before New Year's. Welcome in. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
One of the big things that a lot of people talk about New Year's is their resolutions, and I'm guessing an overwhelming number of those say they're going to get in better shape / lose weight. Would you agree with that?
I think so. Put me on that line. That's me too.
I often fall into that too, I guess. What can you really do? When I belonged to the gym, there would be this influx of people, and by the end of January, they were all gone.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be a better way.
Well, it's because you don't see much results within a month or two, and especially if you're not doing it right. Most people in the gym that I see are kind of going through the motions, but they're not really using the equipment right. They're not using the weights or the cardio equipment the right way where it's going to make a difference. So two ways you lose weight with exercise. One is strength training. But you've got to increase your muscle mass, and you don't do that by just going through the motions. You've got to find a weight that on the 10th, 11th, or 12th repetition, you can't move it anymore. And most importantly, you have to have good form. And I'm going to say 99.5% of the people don't have the correct form. They think they do, but they see me with shoulder problems and back problems. And I've learned over time that there's just a lot of mechanical issues that people are not correcting when they lift weights. So you got to be sore when you lift weights because that means your muscles are responding. And the more muscle mass you have, it's a great fat burning organ. The muscles. Second thing is when you're doing cardio, a lot of people will walk on a treadmill, or maybe a slow jog, or do a Stairmaster, and break a little sweat, but that you're probably in the fat burning zone, which means they're at 65 to probably 60 to 70% of their maximum heart rate. Well, that's moving the joints, and yes, you're burning a little bit of fat, but you're really not changing your cells. If you want to increase your metabolic rate, you have to have an organ in the cell called the mitochondria. That's where all the fat is burned. And to do that, you have to do high interval training. So you got to get your heart rate up to close to 85, 95% of your maximum heart rate and sustain that for at least 20 minutes, 2 or 3 days a week. And most people probably don't get there. Those are the exercises that really increase metabolism. So exercise is one way. Another really important way to enhance weight loss is to increase a hormone called GLP-1. And this is become a very popular weight loss tool because there's a set of drugs that can increase GLP-1 in the body, and those semaglutide is one. We call that Mounjaro, and then another one's Ozempic. You see that advertised a lot. A lot of people are coming in asking for this. It works really nice because what it does is it increases the metabolism of your brown fat. Brown fat generates heat, and it really burns fat very well. It also these line of hormones, because you have this hormone in your body called GLP-1, but you have a drug that can act like that. It increases your satiety, so you're just not hungry. And boy, this time of the year, when you start having the chocolate and the cookies and all the other things that we see at Christmas time, our appetite is really stimulated, and it's really hard to pass that up. You wake up in the morning, your stomach is growling. You think, boy, why am I so hungry?
Yeah.
It's because of all the sugar, and sugar will increase ghrelin, which makes you hungry. So GLP-1 actually blocks that. And then the last thing this does is it reduces insulin resistance. It makes the insulin level go down, and when it goes down, you're not building fat. So unfortunate thing about these medications is pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies are not paying for this unless you have diabetes. You have to have diabetes, which is unfortunate because a lot of people are borderline diabetic.
Yeah.
And they're going to be diabetic in a couple of years or sooner. And if they would just lose 20 pounds, that's gone. They're no more insulin resistant. They're no more borderline diabetic. So it's unfortunate that most of the time these aren't being paid for. And it's a new line of medications, which means it's very pricey, $1,200, $1,500 a month. $1,500 a month as a retail price, but with a coupon you can get it for $25 a month for 6 to 12 months, and then you're back to okay. Now what how am I going to afford this?
Right.
So again, we're back to medications are not the best way to lose weight. This one is a great way. It's great for someone who's diabetic and needs to lose weight because they can stay on it indefinitely. But unfortunately, most people who want to get on this just don't qualify. So they're paying a lot of money and most people won't pay for it. So that's the second line. Another great way to optimize weight loss is to optimize your thyroid. Now, this one is absolutely amazing to me because I'm going to say again, 95, 98% of people who have their thyroid level checked, they're told that it's in the normal range. Well, first of all, they're not checking the right hormone. They need to check free T3. That's the thyroid hormone that your cells are craving. When you have a lot of free T3, your metabolic rate really enhances. And it fixes things like hair loss that women have, and dry skin, and brittle nails, and cold intolerance, and constipation, and fatigue. It does a great job with that. But if you're increasing metabolism, you're going to burn more calories. Your metabolic rate goes up. So how high should that go? Well, your free T3 level is 2.5 to 3.5 is sort of the normal range, or maybe 4, but it should be between 4 and 5. And most providers would never want it to be that high because they think too much thyroid is bad for the heart. Actually, the only bad thing you can do with thyroid is take too much. And if you take too much, your heart rate's going to go up. You can have palpitations. You feel nervous. You kind of shake a little bit. And you quickly recognize that and you back down.
Yeah.
That's the worst that can happen. The best that can happen is your metabolic rate goes up, you lose weight, your lipid panel improves remarkably. I just had blood work done, and I take 120 milligrams of thyroid in the morning, 120 milligrams of thyroid in the afternoon. I never thought I would take that much thyroid, but my heart rate resting is 60, 64, so it's not too high. And what that's done in addition to increase my metabolic rate is my lipid panel was just checked 2 weeks ago, the best it's ever been. Total cholesterol down under 150. Bad cholesterol as low as I've ever seen it. Triglycerides low. So people don't understand this. They think that too much thyroid causes heart disease or heart problems. It doesn't. If you take too much, yes, you'll feel it, and we have to back down on the dose. So optimizing thyroid is important. When we go back to talking about exercise, we want to optimize testosterone because that enhances muscle growth and development, and we need that. Most people are probably low in testosterone. And again, a normal testosterone level is not an optimal testosterone level. I repeat this message probably 10 times a day, that when they look at these levels of normal, we're looking at maybe 1,000 men or 1,000 women from the age of 18 to 90, and we're looking at where their testosterone levels fall. And we're kind of creating a bell-shaped distribution. So 2.5% of the people will have numbers out high on into that range, and 2.5% will have levels on the low end. But if you look at most Americans, we're not real that healthy. We're not really that fit. We're not really that ideal with our body weight. So if that's what you're comparing yourself to, you never want to be average. You never want to be in the normal range. You want to be on the high end. And unless you're trained in hormone therapy, providers aren't comfortable with this. They think testosterone causes prostate cancer, which it doesn't. They think it causes hair growth in women, which it can if you take too much. But the right amount for men and women makes a big difference. So optimizing testosterone. So I mentioned a couple of things. The GLP-1 agonists, which increase brown fat and increase satiety. I mentioned thyroid. I mentioned exercise, both high interval training and muscle mass enhancement with strength conditioning. And then and I mentioned testosterone optimization. And then the last one that I want to talk about is kind of the newer novel one. That's cold water immersion. And I started seeing videos in this, and I thought, this is pretty intriguing, kind of crazy. People walk out on the back porch in the winter and break the ice in a tub and sit in it for a few minutes. Just, ice water. It's like 31 degrees, 32 degrees. And there's actually a lot of research done on this. And what we know is that one of the things that this cold water immersion, now you can sit in a tub on your porch, or I wouldn't be, this last weekend, I would not have been outside with the, 0 degrees or below zero. But when you're in cold water that's just close to the freezing range, but it's not freezing, it increases brown fat production. And again, brown fat increases metabolism. It helps generate heat. So even though it's cold in that cold water, when you get out and your body warms up, you're able to generate heat more effectively. but most importantly is it increases your immune system. It decreases chemicals that we know cause inflammation. People are inflamed right now. I feel the inflammation from eating too much junk over the last few days. The joints hurt. This actually decreases those inflammatory markers. We call them interleukin-1 and tumor necrosis factor. So it decreases those, and then it decreases cortisol. And cortisol is like your own free prednisone that your body makes. And when you have enough cortisol, you don't hurt as much. When you deplete that, you have more joint pain and you have more of a propensity to gain weight. So there's a lot of different mechanisms that causes this to work. But one of the studies that I came across that was really fascinating to me was it increases dopamine release by 2.5 times for up to 6 hours after you get out of the cold water immersion.
You're so happy you got out.
And I'm telling you, it really does work. I've started doing this about 3 weeks ago, and I feel great. In fact, you get out and our house is set at 67, which I'm always kind of got a sweatshirt on or something. Mm-hmm. I get out now and it's warm.
Yeah.
and you're right. You do get kind of numb in the standing in the cold
How
water.
How long can you do that before you have to start worrying about hypothermia?
Well, that's a good question. Like, you have to be careful outside with frostbite. So people say if you're going to do it, you should wear gloves and maybe something on your feet. I'm not sure how long that. I think the key is that you don't extend that time too long.
Yeah.
And definitely don't be out with a wind chill, in the teens or lower.
Yeah.
That's just way too cold. But you can do it in a shower, and that's what I do. I just slowly turn the water down so it's nothing but cold water, and for the first 30 seconds, it's mind over matter. You're just like a couple deep breaths, calm your mind down, and just let it go. And after about a minute, your skin's kind of numb.
Yeah.
It's not freezing anymore, unless you make the mistake that I made last week. I was listening to the radio in the shower, and somebody came on and said, it's 1 degree outside. And I went, oh my gosh, this is freezing. I was just hopping around in the shower. It got in my head. So I had to calm myself down. But to increase that dopamine, to increase your immune system, and increase your ability to burn brown fat, to increase cortisol, and to block inflammatory mediators, these things are pretty cool. And we know athletes have been doing this for years now. They'll
Mm-hmm.
sit in an ice bath after a game. Even some of the teenage athletes will do this. So there's benefit to this, but what they're saying is you need to be a total of 11 minutes a week in this cold water. So 2 minutes a day is probably long enough to do that. And you have to be careful, because the first time I went from my hot water, just turned it right to cold, I couldn't catch my breath. I mean, I thought it was like, how do I even breathe in here?
Mm.
So now it's a gentle return to the cold water, and I'm able to tolerate it. But this is kind of a novel approach. There's a lot of research on this. Some of it has not been very convincing. Some of it has not been real, not a lot of good evidence that it does a lot of the things that the athletes want it to, but we know it increases brown fat. We know it decreases inflammation. We know it enhances dopamine. Those are pretty well established. So that's another approach. Now, if you've got heart conditions or other medical conditions you're not sure of, go real gentle with it. Don't jump right into the cold like I did the first day, because you it's kind of scary, but it makes you feel great. And so we're going to see what happens with the new year now, with the improved diet, with the exercise, and with all the 4 or 5 things that I mentioned here. These are ways you can optimize weight loss and feel better.
Right. Well, we appreciate that. You don't have to wait. You can start tomorrow.
Sure.
You don't have to wait until New Year.
If you're getting in the shower tomorrow, try it. Just turn it to the lukewarm and see how that feels.
If tomorrow's your shower day, we're ready for it. Well, Dr. McKnight, thank you so much, as always.
You're welcome.
Dr. Tim McKnight, as we talk with the doc this morning,